quick little guide on how to create an asset for Dota 2, namely something organic like Medusa's tail. And we're going to use Mudbox and a little bit of Maya LT just to bring this object into the game. And I'm just going to show you a quick workflow process, and I really hope you guys enjoy it. I found this to be really fun and easy to do, and it's just really fun. So yeah, let's get right to it and jump right in. Alright, so before we begin, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go through some basic workflow procedures of what this process is going to kind of look like. It's going to be really quick, but I just wanted to kind of give this to you on paper so you kind of can see exactly what we're going to be doing. So, so basically step one is going to be to go ahead and download the files for from the Dota 2 requirements page. I'm going to show you how to do that, and that's pretty straightforward. We're just going to go to a web page, download some files, and you're going to have the base Medusa. For me, I did the Medusa tail, so you're going to have the base Medusa files, and from there what we're going to do is basically download them and import them into Maya LT. So the second step is going to be going ahead and importing those files that you download from the Dota 2 requirements page into Maya LT. We're going to be specifically looking at the tail file. Basically how Dota does it is each model is broken down into the components that you can like basically open the whole model with all the parts, or you can open up individual parts. So in our case, we're going to be opening up the tail and kind of looking at what that is and bringing it into Maya LT. And then what we're going to do is we're going to fix the poly count because it comes in too high, and we're going to just kind of bring that down to a reasonable level, basically 400 polygons, or 400 tries rather. And then what we're going to do is we're going to lay out our UVs. We're going to clean up the model, and we're going to make some base revisions to the model. So like I wanted to have the tail with a regular rattler rather than the current tail that came with the model. So I reshaped it somewhat, and yeah, that's basically it. So we're going to do some base revisions. Depending on what you're doing, if you're doing something other than a Medusa tail, then you can do other base revisions, or you can use this process to create your own by not downloading the files but just starting from scratch. But for this, we're gonna work from a downloaded file. Anyway, once you have all of your model kind of ready to be exported, we're gonna go ahead and export that low resolution file as an FBX, basically 400 polygons, and we're gonna export that to Mudbox. Okay, and this is where all of our magic is going to happen. Effectively, this tutorial is about Mudbox, and I'm going to kind of show you some cool techniques and how to quickly run from basically the downloaded files into Dota 2, and all of our real detail work is going to be done here in Mudbox. So we're going to sculpt, we're going to paint, we're going to add details, and we're going to bake right in Mudbox. All right. So the step after that is to kind of just tweak whatever. This is not even necessary. It depends on how good our paint comes out, but if our paint job comes out really good, we won't even need to tweak, but we may want to anyway and go into Photoshop and do some basic tweaking. In addition, we're going to go ahead and compile our files for the actual Dota 2 engine. It has some very specific requirements for how it has to be compiled. So the step after that is going to be to go ahead and take all of our sculpted object and baking it down, and we're going to export it over to Maya LT. And once we're in Maya LT, we're going to import it. We're going to adjust the UVs. In this specific case, because it's Medusa, and because of the way that it was created, it was a 256 by 512 UV structure. So because it's not square, we're going to have to do some kind of tinkering to make it work properly in Maya LT before we export it back out. So I'll show you how to do that, and we're going to bind the mesh to the bones, and we're going to export it. All right. Once it's exported, we're going to bring it into Dota 2, where we're going to do an import and test it and finish it up. So yeah, it's not super hard. It looks like a bunch of steps, but it's really not that bad. Basically, it's going to be prepare your file, sculpt your file, work on your textures, export your file, and bring it into Dota. It's really not as bad as it seems. So I did this process in about 6 to 8 hours on my first run through with this Dota model. and I think you could probably do it pretty much quicker. I think you could probably get a model done in half a day once you get very comfortable with the tools. So figure about four to 6 hours. Probably you could have a really nice asset ready to be brought into Dota 2 by using this method. All right, so without further ado, let's get started and let's jump into the download and get this thing ready to rock. All right, see you there. Before we begin, what we're going to need to do is actually get the original Medusa files. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to go to dota2.com/workshop/requirements/Medusa. And that will give you this page. And as you can see right here, we have the option to go ahead and download that file. So what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and click on that and download it. Okay, and then let's jump into, I already have it downloaded, so I'm not going to, but you go ahead and download it and get that thing saved out. And then what you're going to do is you're going to open up the FBX file for it. So let's jump into Maya LT very quickly. And I'm actually going to open the original up. So I'm going to go open scene, and I'm going to go into Medusa tail. So once you get it, it's going to be like Medusa models, models, hero, Medusa, FBX, and inside of there is tail, Medusa tail.fbx. So go ahead and open that up, and we're going to go ahead and import. And there we go. All right, so that'll bring in this file. Okay, so once in, what you're going to notice is that this file is just way too big. So you're going to have to go through, and I've already kind of done it a little bit, but you're going to want to kind of remove some of these unnecessary polygons from the structure in order to make it a little more fair and smooth, because we're just way above the poly limit by default. I don't know why this model comes in so high res, but it does. It really has to be at 400 triangles, and it comes in at about 900. So you're going to need to whittle this model down a little bit to get it to a point where it's going to be usable for us. So we need to get this number to about 400 polygons. Okay, so let's take a look at what that'll look like once it's done. So this is what mine looks like once I got it all optimized. Okay, so now I'm below the 400 polygons that I needed to be below. I've got my rattler kind of tail, and I've got my basics. Okay, so what we're going to need to do next is get this thing ready for our UVs, and basically just set up our UV coordinates. And to do that, we're going to use a really cool tool called Unfold 3D. And it's built into Maya LT, and it makes really quick work of things like this. So let's just go ahead and get started by grabbing our actually, you know what we're going to do first is, because this skeleton is going to get in our way all the time, I'm just going to go ahead and go into my layers and create an empty layer and apply this bone structure to that layer just so I can turn it off, and now I don't get confused by that bone structure anymore. All right, so that's that. In fact, maybe what I should do is rename it to bones. Okay, and I'm just going to hit save. All right, so now I can always just turn them on and off as I need. Now, to get this kind of ready for what we're going to do, what we're going to want to do is just go into our polygons tab and open up our texture editor. Okay, and as you can see here, I've got it kind of looking good already. All right, and this is what you're going to want to end up with. And if we were to turn on our UV look, okay, I'm showing this just so that you can see that basically what we're doing is we're using texture coordinate 1 and texture coordinate 2. Now that's specific to Medusa, and you have to check your own texture coordinate based off the object you're working on. Medusa's tail has a 256 by 512 permission, so because of that I have 256 in the height and 512 across the length, and that basically means that we're going to take 2 UV coordinates, and this is important for the way that Mudbox will want things to be handled. So let's just keep that in mind. So all that said, this is what our ultimate goal is to be. This is one thing that would not work because we have to send this to Mudbox, and Mudbox would be very unhappy with you if you were to do something like this. Okay, so what we don't want is our UV coordinates splitting down the middle of any kind of object. Okay, so if there's things crossing this line, you can't do that. You have to separate it and push them like so. so. All right, so that's one of the few prerequisites. So I just want to show you quickly how to actually do the unfold 3D because it's really cool. So I'm just going to show you how I did that. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to undo basically this this wrapping by selecting all of my space, all of my shells, and I'm going to go create UVs, and I'm going to go automatic mapping, okay? And that's just going to create this big mess, okay? And that's probably something about like what you have, or if you downloaded it, it'll be like kind of just covering both of these from left to right, and you can't do that. You have to rebuild them. All right, so we're just going to go select faces, and we're going to select them all. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go edit UVs, and we're going to go sew UV edges, okay? And that's going to put all of them into this big jumbled mess, all right? But that's okay. We're going to fix that in 2 seconds. So so the next thing we're going to want to do is go right-click and go Edge, and inside of here, what we can now do is define where we want our UVs to be split, okay? So what I can do is I can just simply go right down the body, right, and split right down the body, and now all I have to do is go edit UVs and say cut UV edges, okay? So that's that. So now if I were to go right click and go vertex, I'm sorry, right click and go UV rather, you have to do it in UV mode, and select all these UVs. If I go polygon and go unfold, we get a really nice unfold right out of the box, okay? So that was literally one seam, and we immediately got a really nice result already just by using the unfold tool, okay? So, but we're going to actually take it a little further because, as I said, we can't really split this down the middle. And in here, we're probably getting a bit of stretching. In fact, we can take a look at what that looks like. Actually, we're not getting very much stretching at all. There's a little bit of compression in here, and we have a little bit of stretching up on top. But for all intents and purposes, that's a really good unwrap right away, okay? So, you know, if you were just doing it for just a single piece, then this would actually be really good. But you know, just turn it on its side and take up the full space, and you're pretty much done. But what we're going to do is we're going to try to optimize our space a little bit better than that. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go edge mode again, and let's just kind of come in here and get about the 50% of the body size, right about, I'm going to go with this one, just because I think that probably is a little more like it. And I'm just going to go edit UVs, and I'm going to go cut UV edges again. Okay, so now what we've done is we've basically put a seam right here. Okay, so now we want to put one down on the bottom, and we're going to go same thing, edit UVs, split, cut UV edges, and we've put a cut there now. So now what we want to do is just simply get this guy to be nicely cut as well. I basically have that outside loop now selected, all right? And what I'm going to do is the same thing, edit UVs and cut UV edges. And we're just going to go ahead and select UVs and select them all. And let's go polygons and unfold. And now you'll see that we're getting a little bit better results. Okay, so we're still having a problem here. So let's just close this for now. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to go object mode, and in display under polygons, you'll see that there's this option for texture border edges. Okay, and when you turn it on, you'll see that it gets a little highlighted. So basically what's happening right now is that this cut seam is a problem. So I'm going to show you how to undo a cut seam. So we're just going to go ahead and select this guy out like so. And because this one has been cut from the original cut down the middle, we don't really want that. So what we're going to do is just make sure we've got them all. And we're now going to go edit UVs, and we're going to go sew UV edges. Okay, and that'll put those guys back together again. All right, and now when we do our unwrap, it should look a little better. So let's just go ahead, and as you can see, it's already sewed them together. And let's just go right click, UV. Let's select all of our UVs. And let's go polygons, unfold, and there we go. That looks really nice. All right, so now all we're going to need to do is just scale this guy up, and we're not going to worry about that anymore because it's just going to give us false results. And let's actually, yeah, I want this because I can see where the squares are. That's very helpful to me right now. So let's just bring this guy down a little bit. And actually, you know, I'm I'm thinking that I probably should cut this one higher. So that's what's so nice about this Unfold 3D is that you can actually just really quickly make edits. So let's just grab our edges. Let's grab this whole edge here. Let's go edit UVs, and we're going to go sew UV edges, and we're just going to go to the next one down, and we're going to go create edit UVs and split UVs. Right click, UV, select them all, and polygons, unfold. All right, so that's a much more relative size, so that's much better for me. Now I'm just going to scale these guys up until I get kind of a good sizing situation. All right, and I'm actually not going to finish this all out because I've already done it once. I'm just kind of giving you the basic idea, but yeah, so you're going to lay your stuff out, and again, we have to make sure that we do not cross over this line here. Okay, so this would not work. All right, we have to make sure that everything is within that one. It's either in this box or it's in that box, and there's reasons why. Okay, but for now, we're just going to worry about what we can't do, and that is what we can't do. So let's just get these guys scaled down a little more till we can be sure that everything fits within those two boxes. All right, so that's about good. That's not still going to work, but I'll just do that one on its own scaling. And I'm going to put that one over here and that one over there. And this would basically be good enough for sending out to Mudbox at this point. All right. So so you want something that looks kind of like this. And once you have that done, you're just going to go right-click, Object Mode, select your object, and go File, Export, Selection, and you're going to export it as an FBX file. Doesn't matter what you call it, just as long as you remember it for moving into Mudbox. All right, so that's that, and I'm going to jump over to Mudbox now. All right, great. So that's basically what you end up wanting to have is something very simple like this. You want to have your UVs done, and you're going to then export it right to Mudbox. All right, and that's where all the magic is going to begin. All right, cool. Okay, so inside of Mudbox, we're going to have something sort of like this. All right, now I've already gone ahead and fully sculpted this model. In fact, I'll go ahead and give you a quick show of what that looks like all the way at the highest level. And let me turn on my paint layers. And I'm just going to kind of show you a little bit of what I've done to kind of make this thing work here. Here you can see we're getting, I mean, this isn't the greatest model in the world, but it doesn't really have to because it's going to Dota 2. Dota 2 is very, very low res. So because of that, I didn't worry too much about details, and I tried to over embellish on a lot of things, like, normally I wouldn't have such thick, heavy cracks in the scales, and they would probably be a lot more well defined. But because Dota 2 has very low texture resolutions, and it's basically going to make this stuff really kind of small, and the character itself is really kind of small when you're playing the game. So you want your details to kind of be bigger, heavier brush strokes, and bigger and heavier. But yeah, all in all, that's what the sculpt kind of came out to be, and it ended up looking really good in game. So I'm going to say that this worked out pretty awesome. But yeah, so that's what you're going to kind of want to have as your end result. But I'm just going to give you a quick run through of how I got there, but I'm not going to go through every little detail because I would be here forever. So yeah, so let's just kind of quickly run through the process. Okay, so let's turn off all of my paint layers because I had none of those to start. So that's the final sculpt, if you will, and I'm just going to move it down through my levels so you can kind of see what happened at each stage. Okay, so at level 3 I started to rough in my details, and there's level 3. Okay, so at level 3 this is kind of what I had, and basically what I did is kind of rough in the general scale shape. Okay, and I think I actually used this texture map, and got it to something about like so, and as you can see it lines up pretty well. So yeah, as you can see, it was definitely done with this map, and I just very lightly with pressure went over this. Okay, and that gave me this kind of undulated look. And so at this stage what I did was I kind of just used the once I had the basic implied lines done, I kind of went in there with the sculpt tools, and even with nothing on at all, and I just kind of started using my my tablet to just kind of very carefully bring out these shapes, okay, and make them a little heavier and a little bit bigger and a little more refined. And by using the control key in conjunction with the sculpt tool, you can kind of embed your shapes as well, so it doesn't have to be one directional. Okay, so that's just something. That's basically how I got these kind of undulous shapes and the beginning of the definition of my scale structures. Okay, so so from there, what I did was then I added my, increased my resolution a little bit and got myself to level 5, created a new sculpt layer, and continued. So basically all I did was just kind of continue with the sculpting by, holding down control and just kind of very loosely adding these kind of shapes in here like so, and defining my scales. And I just kind of, very loosely just define everything. I also, at this point, put in these some of these details by just sculpting them in and using the steady stroke. So if you go into here under your sculpt tool, or any of your tools really, you can do what's called a steady stroke. Okay, and that's really useful for adding details like this. I'm just going to do it up here on the skin just so you can get an idea. And what it'll do is it'll actually see that little I don't know, arrow looking thing with the dot. So that's basically saying where it's going to be averaging. So as you can see, I can make very clean, even edges with that. And I'm just going to do that a little smaller so you can even see it better. And I'm going to make this strength 1 and the size like 2, and you'll get the idea. So now what I can do is I can actually go in here and create very carefully sculpted shapes, and that's how I basically built these structures. So that's the basic idea. The next level up is going to be level 7, and in level 7 you're going to start adding your more finite details. So as you can see, I started putting the bumps in, and a lot of that stuff is using the textures. So what I would do is I would grab my texture, something like, I don't know, that or this, and this is more your textural kind of stuff, and you're going to use your sculpt tools and your wax tool and kind of getting in here. Oh, got to turn that off. So let's grab the sculpt tool and let's turn off steady stroke because we won't need that for this type of stuff. So we're going to go undo steady stroke, and we're just going to kind of come in here and add some of these rougher fine details. And I say that because we're going to go one step deeper, but we're actually not going to use sculpting to do that. We're going to use bump maps because it's much faster, much more efficient, and gets the same results. So yeah, so that's one thing that I think is often a mistake with Mudbox is the tendency to think that you have to do everything with modeling and sculpting because you're in a sculpting program, and if you just subdivide enough, you can always add more detail. But the reality is that that's not the most optimal way to do it, and I'm going to show you a better way. Alright, so one thing that is good to do at this stage is to start really refining our fine details. And what we're going to do is get in here, and what we're going to kind of play with now is the scrape brush, right? We're going to grab our scrape brush, and we're going to kind of come over these surfaces. Oops, I have a thing on. So, and we're just going to kind of rough in these kind of flatter, sharper, edgier kind of qualities, right? And this is going to help us bring that scale quality to life, right? And again, you can use this with a texture pattern like I was doing a moment ago to bring in some texture, but most of that stuff we're going to end up handling in a different method, as I was mentioning a moment ago. So let's just kind of understand that at this stage what you really want to do is start refining all your details, and how you do this is very much an artistic choice. There's a million ways to handle this, and like I did this kind of in a quick rush to get this process worked out, and I'm kind of showing you here on a model that I wouldn't necessarily say is like a beautiful, wonderful, perfect finished model, but like I said, it did come into the game very well, so I was pretty happy with the results. But of course I could work at this for days and days and just keep pushing these pushing the motor around and just constantly refining and adding details and adding work and making it just look better and better and better. And the more you work at it, the better it'll look. But one of the beauties is that we can get these results so quickly, especially for something like Dota 2, where we don't need to have such high levels of detail. This is just a very, we can rough in these details quickly and get great results out of it. And that's what makes Mudbox so awesome, because it's so painterly. It's so unlike your standard 3D tools that are always so mechanical and difficult and non-natural. In stark contrast, this program is extremely loose and fluid and carefree in a way, and it just makes it so pleasant to work in. This is like Zen for a computer artist, or at least it is to me. I always feel at ease and comfortable when I'm working in this program. I'm always like, it's Mudbox time. It's just such a great tool. It's just very powerful and gives great results, and it's just so non-technical that it's just great. I'm just sitting here brushing in my details and brushing in stuff, and I could do this for days. This is just too fun. And it just never ceases to be entertaining, and never seems like a chore. So it's just a great tool. Anyway, sorry about expounding on that for a little while, but as you can see, this is what you would want to do at this stage, is kind of rough in these really sharp edges and making your model really come to life. All right, so you can do this, and you're going to work at this till you're happy with it. And once you kind of get happy with it, the next phase would be to add your super sharp details. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a trick that so like the natural want would be to just continue to add detail, right? Just increase polygon count until you could just get in here with one of these guys and just get really good sharp detail with this, right? But that's never really going to be an effective way to do it. Okay, I mean, you can do it to a degree, but there's always a point where you're going to need so much computational power to handle all the polygons that it just doesn't become worth it in the end, especially if there's another tool that does it better and faster and easier. And well, Mudbox happens to come with one of those, and it's an old method, but Mudbox happens to utilize it very well, and that is called a bump map. Okay, and if I'm just going to go ahead and turn that bump map on, and in the bump map now, you'll see that this is no longer related to the geometry. Okay, so if I go down in geometry levels, you'll see that this texture detail actually remains. So it's completely independent of the modeling. So that's a really powerful feature in and of itself, because what that means is we're not increasing our poly count to get these high levels of grit and detail. Okay, now this isn't exactly the best job in the world of it, but it's just to show concept, and you can see that, like, there's a stark contrast between what the detail level is that we can get with sculpting and the kind of fine detail that we can get with this bump map. And this all translates. So when we do our bake, it's all going to pull through. So there's no reason to add your polygon count to the point where you're not getting any gain out of it anymore. What your poly count really needs to be for is for doing these like sculpting qualities and your sculpted shapes, not so much your sharp details. We have other tools for that, and it just increases your poly count for no reason. So though you could theoretically increase your poly count to get that kind of detail literally sculpted, it becomes unnecessary. And since the paint tools in Mudbox are just so outstanding, there's really kind of no reason not to. So what I'm going to show you is just kind of how to do that a little bit. So I'm just going to go in and I'm going to turn off this bump map, and I'm going to create a new bump map, right? So I'm just going to go new layer, and I'm going to create a new bump map. So I'm going to call this test bump, and I'm going to give it a texture. I'm going to make sure it's in the bump map channel, okay? And I'm going to hit OK. So that'll create a new layer here. So there's my test bump, and in here what I want to do is just simply grab a paintbrush and grab a texture, and you can use any texture you want. You can grab anything, like something like this might be cool, I don't know, and you just gotta paint, you know. And as you paint, you'll see that the bumps come right into the surface, and they're really believable. So it's not like you're losing anything by doing this, you know. And you can fill in there with mud or do whatever you want, you know. You can just kind of go crazy, and it's just so fluid. And because it's not model based, you're not adding any you're not adding anything. You're not slowing down your computer to get to here, right? So you can just kind of just paint it right in there. And even if your computer's a little slow and you can't handle so much polygon resolution for the last layer of sculpt, you can always just go down, you know, until it's fast and responsive for you again, because the detail is still going to hold. So I could just come in here now at a lower level and paint in these super high level details, and you know, just kind of make good use of this tool and just kind of brush everything in here. I mean, I'm just doing this really rough, but then when I zoom back up to my highest levels, you'll see that all falls right into place where it should. You know, we're gonna have nice mud sitting in the cracks. So so that's just a nice idea to think about, is that you can use these bump maps to your advantage, and you don't have to increase your poly count, especially for something like Dota 2. I mean, I don't see a reason why you wouldn't want to do this, but I'm sure there are reasons that you might want to, you know, sculpt everything in there. I just have never found a reason for it. I find you know, this is just a fantastic method, and it's yet to fail me. So so yeah, just keep that in mind. It's really cool, and you can do that with, you know, anything here. So if you wanted to add, you know, some bumps on top of here, you might want to grab, like, you know, something, I don't even know, like maybe like that, and just kind of rough in these. Ooh, that is way too strong. And let's just grab something a little more in the gray area. And as you can see, those details just come right in there, you know. It's just like so incredible. This is probably going to be a little more useful to us here. You know, so if you wanted to add like a bumpy, craggly kind of scale, you could do that, you know, all throughout it. And you know, it's up to you. It's your creativity. It's your way of doing things. But just wanted to show you that. So so yeah, so that's basically the concept, and so that's the bump map. So moving on to painting your textures, that's going to be basically the same kind of concept. As you can see here, I have a whole bunch of layers, but you know, you just start with one. So you're just going to go right click and go new layer, and we're just keep it in the diffuse layer this time. We'll call this test diffuse. And what I'm going to show you now is just how to do some basic painting techniques. Okay, so so for me, what I wanted to do is I wanted to get this kind of crossed pattern going. So what I just did was I just actually did base layer painting, and I just kind of painted in basic colors and worked from there. So grab myself a nice dark red and hit OK. And now what I can do is I can actually come in here and just paint my colors in here, right? So, oops, didn't get the color. Paintbrush, color. There's the red. Red, okay. And now what I could do is I can just kind of come in here and start painting in my colors. And it's got, you know, great brush tools, so this is not going to be something that's going to give you any trouble. It's very intuitive and very natural. And it's just, like I said, this is a very painterly program, so you can just do a whole bunch of cool stuff and make really great art, and it's really easy. So so yeah, have some fun and create your paint layers. All right, so so that's the basics. You do have the ability to do multiplies and all that, so you can do, you know, undercutting, undercoloring, just like you would in Photoshop, and get some really awesome results. And yeah, so play with this and enjoy it, because it's really great. Just really a fun tool to play with. And you know, you maybe want to come back and add your black lines in here, a little muddy, and kind of come in there and fill in your colors. And as you can see, very rapidly you can start to just nicely paint all your textures in. It doesn't take any real heavy technical skill, and it's just so fun. So the actual modeling part has just become pleasurable, which is nice. You know, we've needed that for a while in 3D, and Mudbox really delivers on that part of it. It is just so comfortable to work in. It's seriously, it's like Zen. You know, once you get everything working and it's kind of looking good, and It's just so fun. Oh, I love it. It's just my favorite. Anyway, so yeah. So let's move on. So that's painting, and that's kind of how painting works. And as you can see, I have layered a whole bunch of things. I've got multiplies, I've got normals, and let me just turn that on. Oops, turn it on. There we go. And as you can see, this is kind of where I took it to. And again, I was trying to be very bold and over the top, so because I know Dota 2 kind of mutes everything a little bit and makes it smaller and makes it less detailed. I wasn't so worried about getting super crisply detailed on this map, and it like I said, in game it looked really nice, so I was very happy. It kind of came through the way I was hoping it would. Broad brush strokes really work well for Dota 2. All right, so yeah, so let's move on. Okay, so let's just assume now that you've got your model sculpted up, and it's all textured and painted, and you're kind of set to go. And for me, I like to do all my textures in layers. So I have a whole bunch of paint layers here, and basically what I try to do is keep them more or less together as far as the ideas go. So like here I have the tail texture, I have the scale shadows, I have the black over, I have highlights, I have all sorts of different things. But however you get to your results, it doesn't really matter. In the end, we're just going to bake it all down, and it won't matter how many layers we have because it's just going to be one baked layer. All right, so we're going to actually get to that process now. So again, assuming that you've got a sculpture that you want to now bake down to your low poly, let's just go ahead and see what that looks like. So the next thing we would do is go UV maps, texture maps, and new operation. Okay, and in here what we're going to do is we're just going to set up our basics. What we do need is the ambient occlusion map, and we need our displacement map, and we need our normal map. Mostly we need ambient occlusion and normal, so let's just use those two. And in our ambient occlusion, what we're going to want to do is just make sure our target is the level 0 of our model, and the highest level is our source. Okay, so what we're basically going to be doing is baking down to the level 0, which is 398 polygons, all the detail that we have from the 3,538,000 polygons. Okay, and it's basically going to take these details and push it down onto that, and that'll be the truth for the ambient occlusion map as well as our normal map. Okay, so inside of here we're just going to basically set all of our texture resolutions. I actually like this one at 4096. I always work way higher than I need to. I basically expect to be working a little slower, but to have the fine details for later in case any reason that I may want to have this model at a higher resolution, I would have it. If I do it at a lower resolution, it is quicker, but I don't have as much detail. So in general, I usually work in the 4096 realm. But again, just to show you, what's very important to realize is that notice that all of these are square resolutions, right? We have 256 by 256, 512 by 512, 1024 by 1024, etc. What we don't have is 256 by 512, 1024 by 512. We don't have any of that. So that's why it's so important to make sure your UV maps are separated, because what Mudbox will do is it will actually create two separate files for each of your textures, because you have one on UV map 1 and one on UV map 2. So just keep that in mind, and I'll show you how that actually works out in the end after we do our bake. So yeah, so then you're just going to need to set your file name, and make sure you set something in there, and for your normal map you'll want to do the same thing. All right, so just make sure you set that. Now this is very important because of the fact that Dota 2 wants everything in max format. You will have to change your compatibility to 3ds Max. Okay, so make sure you set that compatibility to 3ds Max for your normal map, and that's about the only thing that's super important. And you're just going to go ahead and save this out, and I always use TGAs, but you can do it however you'd like. TIFFs are fine. In fact, TIFFs, if you're going to be doing really high level work, you're going to want to use TIFFs, but yeah, so that's that. That's basically what we're going to do, and then you're just going to go ahead and extract. Okay, and once you do your extraction operation, I'm just going to grab the one that I've already created, and show you what I've got set up in there. So I'm going to go UV maps, extract, and grab my PK1. All right. So in here we can see that we've got my ambient occlusion being transferred over. It's at 4096. I've got my location set, etc., etc. And the same thing is true with my normal map. I've got all the things set up, and I really, like I said, I don't need to transfer the paint maps. So let's just turn that off. All right. And once you're done with all that and everything is set, you're just going to hit extract, and that will run your operation. I'm not going to do that now because it takes a while, and I'm just going to show you the results. Okay. So once it's complete, you're going to end up with a folder. And I'm going to go into Mudbox output 2. And as I was saying, you're going to get a series of files. So here's our AO map. Here's our normal map. And here's our diffuse map. Now, again, see how it's U1 V1 and U2 V1? And the same thing is true for our AO. Again, that's because this is Medusa and because it's a non-square texture format. So just be aware that that's why it's happening. We'll have to recompile this in Photoshop, which is really our next step. So let's go ahead and jump into Photoshop really quick and see what that's going to look like. All right. So let's pop open Photoshop. Okay, so here we are in Photoshop, and this is kind of what our textures are going to look like from Mudbox. Okay, and again, so this is U1 V1 and this is U1 V2. Or U2 V1 rather, and we have the same thing for our AO, and we have the same thing for our normals. Okay, and effectively what we're going to want to do is create one file that is double as wide, and we're going to paste all of our textures into that file. Okay, so once you do that, you're going to have something that sort of looks like this. So as you can see, so like this AO is actually a good example because I haven't merged it yet. What you're going to do is you're just going to copy your AO map and paste it into this wider file. Okay, so this file is 8192 by 4096, exactly twice as wide as it is tall. So that will accommodate for our wide texture map for Medusa. Again, I know I keep repeating this, but if you're using a non-square format, you have to do this. If you are using a square format, as many of the characters in Dota 2 are, and many of the assets are, you can get away with not having to do this step. You won't need to compile your textures like this so much. You'll still have to do some compilation to get it ready for Dota 2, but as far as the transfer back and forth from Mudbox to Maya LT, you won't have to do this step. It'll just be much straighter. You'll just basically send the files over. Okay, so again, this is specific to Medusa because of the very wide format of her texture maps. Okay, so but it's good because you learn a more difficult step this way. Okay, so without belaboring that anymore, this is what you're going to want to end up with. Okay, so a wide texture, something sort of like this. Okay. So the next thing you're going to want to do is actually go to the Dota 2 requirements shader mask guide. So this is how you're going to compile your textures. Okay, so this is a very detailed explanation of exactly how to create your textures. Because this video is not going to go through all of the details of how to do this, what I am going to do is I'm going to have a link on screen right now, and that will be another video that I've done that really goes through the explanation of exactly how to handle textures for Dota 2 specifically. Okay, I know you're going to be jumping in on the middle of a tutorial with that video, but at the same time that part will really well explain how to handle your textures for Dota 2. So so take a look through that. Otherwise, just read the information on this page because it will give you the best information you can get as far as how to set up your textures really well for Dota 2. So I'm going to go ahead and move on from here and open up one of those files. So I'm going to go ahead and go, actually let me close all this stuff up. And close and close and close, and sure, I'll save it, why not. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up the final files for Dota 2. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of explain what's going on there. Yeah, so in the end, what you're going to need to have is a underscore color map, an underscore mask 1 map, an underscore mask 2 map, and a normal map. Okay, and I'm just going to open these guys up and show you what they kind of look like. All right, so here's our color map. Not any different than what I was just showing you. Basically, that was good enough. Okay. Then what we've got is our mask 1 map, okay, and this is all handled in the channels. And again, read that Dota 2 requirements page for details on how to set up your masks. It's rather complicated, so I'm not going to go through that right now. And again, you can look at that video that I showed you, because that will really help you with your textures if that guide from the Dota 2 requirements page isn't good enough. Okay, so moving right along to the mask 2, this is what it'll kind of look like. So basically how these two masks work, both 1 and 2, are basically channel based. So each of these channels is going to hold information relative to a specific task. So for example, on the mask 2, I know for a fact that the red channel is actually your specular. The blue channel is your like basically whether or not you're picking up color from the color map. The alpha mask is your overall specular intensity, and the green channel I believe is rim light. So you really want to know what all these do, and I'm actually going to throw up a little reference guide for you right now that will explain how exactly these channels all break down. But again, this is something you really have to go to the Dota 2 requirements page for to fully comprehend, and I highly recommend you do that. Alright, so the last thing is our normal map, and as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. There's really not much that has to be done here. It's going to be straight up normal map, as we would any other normal map. So that said, here's all of our textures, and this is what they should kind of look like. And again, each one of them have to be labeled very specifically. It has to be underscore color.tga. The mask 1 has to be underscore mask 1.tga. The mask 2 has to be underscore mask 2.tga. And the Medusa, the normal map has to be underscore normal.tga. All right. So once you have all that set up, you should be good to go. All right, so let's jump back over to Maya LT and see how this pans out over there. All right, so let's jump. Okay, so here we are back in Maya LT, and what we're going to be doing here is basically applying the textures, and we're going to export it. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what we got. So the first thing we're going to want to do is open up our texture editor and select our object. All right, and as we can see, it's still looking just the way it was. Now, this is going to actually prove to be a problem in just a short amount of time, because we're going to be importing a texture, and it's going to basically squeeze it into this texture parameter just by default. So we're going to have to fix that a little bit. All right, so let's get to that. So let's close that, and let's actually apply a texture to this thing. So we're going to go materials, and we're going to apply this Dota to specific texture to the object. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that, and let's grab our Albedo color, and this is going to be our color map. All right, so here's our color, and we're just going to grab the color, and now what we're going to do is we're going to grab our normal map. Okay, there is our normal map. So let's just go ahead and load that guy up. And now what we're going to do is we're going to load up our mask 1 map. Okay, so let's just click that, and let's load up the mask 1 map. All right, and the last one is going to be mask 2, and we're going to go ahead and grab mask 2. All right, so open, and there you're going to have it. So we're going to want to turn on our normal map, and the last thing that we're going to do is kind of fix what our problem is. Okay, so as you can see here, what we've got is basically the map not working properly. All right, and again, this is only due to the fact that this model is a 256 by 512. If this was a 256 by 256 or any kind of square format, this would have been no problem at all, and it would have jumped right in and everything would have been perfect. But because this model is a little special, we have one extra step we have to do. All right, so let's go back into our materials tab by going to the polygons and grabbing open our texture space. And as you can see, what's happening is it's basically squeezing this whole thing into one texture parameter, which is not really what we want. We kind of want it to use the whole thing. So it's kind of backwards, but it's okay. It works fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to select all the shells, and we're just basically now going to scale this down to fit inside of that that mask. Okay, so zoom in nice and tight. In fact, I'm going to make this full screen so I have really good clarity on this, and I'm just going to continue to scale my object and make it fit. Alright, so there we go, and W, and slide it over a little bit, and that should be just about good. Yeah, that should do it. Alright, so so now that they're all kind of overlaying on each other, we can close this up, and again, I mean, you can go crazy in here and make sure everything fits perfect. I'm just kind of roughing it in just so you get the idea. But yeah, so that's basically the idea that you want to go with. In fact, this one is really not settling right. That's so much better. Okay, that's so much better. And that should do. So let's just close this up now, and we will see that now all of our textures are arranged properly. All right, so that's good. That's what we wanted. All right, so that's basically it. Now it's just a matter of exporting our model. So let's go ahead and do that next. All right. Okay, so in order to import the model into Dota 2, we're going to need to attach it to the bone structure. So what we're going to want to do is go back into here, go into our channel box, and turn on our bones again. Okay, and this part is a little complicated, specifically on this model again. This model proved to have some complications that that proved challenging. Basically, the bone that is the body. So let's just let's apply the shell itself to a layer also, and we'll call this body, right? And let's hit save, and there we go. So now I can turn off the body. So effectively what we want to do is grab this bone. See this guy right here, this first one. This is part of the waist of the actual model itself. So that has to be part of your grab. Okay, but because it's not so easy to grab, because once you grab it, it's going to grab all of them. Okay, because it's the root bone. You're going to have to kind of use the outliner for this. So let's just go ahead and do that. Let's go Window, and let's go Outliner. Okay, so in the outliner, we can actually specifically grab all the bones that we want to grab. So what we're going to want is everything in spine, from spine down. So just tab out all these guys. And keep tabbing them out, keep tabbing them out, keep tabbing them out until you got them all. And now what you're going to want to do is grab all the bones from here to there. Okay? And that should... Is that it? Yeah, that's it. And that. Okay, we can just minimize that for now, and what we can do now is turn on our body and select our body, and we can go Animation tab, and we're going to go Skin, and we're going to go Smooth Bind, and we're going to take the options for the Smooth Bind out. Okay, and in here what we want to do is we want to make sure this is set to geodesic voxel, and we want our bind to selected joints. Okay, it's really important that this is set to selected joints. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and hit Apply. And now those bones will be applied, and we can go ahead and close that. Now to test this, what you want to grab is something like an arm bone, and just make sure that it's not affecting your model at all. Okay, good, it's fine. Okay, and what you could do is you could actually turn on X-ray mode. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So now I can see through the body to see the bones, and I can grab a little bone part, and I can rotate it and see that it is doing what it's supposed to do. All right, so it's deforming properly. So at this point, this bone is now attached to the body, and we are ready for export. Okay, now that our bones are all attached and everything is connected and everything's ready for export, what we can do is we can actually just turn off this bones layer. And what we can do now is just simply select our object, and we're going to go into this Steam Workshop area, and we're going to go Export to Dota 2.
Okay, so let's just go ahead and do that. And as you can see, I've already filled out this information once before, but I'll just do it all over again. So basically, this is going to be your folder to where you're going to be saving to. I chose my desktop and just created a folder called Medusa Export. It doesn't matter where this folder exists, but just so long as you select a folder for it to export its files to. What it's going to do is it's basically going to export your color map information, all your textures, and your model to this folder. So just make sure you go ahead and set that. You want to create a unique name, doesn't matter what it is. I'm doing Medusa Tail. Maybe I'll even do Medusa Tail Red. Okay, you're going to choose your hero, and you're going to choose the loadout slot. So for us, it's Medusa and Tail. And the last thing you have to do is just fill this detail. So how you would do that is you just, if you have it empty like so, you're just going to select your object and click this little arrow button. That will automatically fill it with the object that you're going to be sending. Okay, so that's basically it. You're going to go ahead and hit export. And voila, you'll get successfully exported for Dota 2 Workshop. You'll get these errors that basically just say that the materials aren't acceptable, but that's no worry. That actually isn't an error at all. It's actually confirmation. So if you get this successfully exported, you have done it. Okay, so just go ahead and hit OK, close this, and close that. Very good. So just save your work. And now we're going to jump over to Dota 2. And how we're going to do that is we're going to go Steam Workshop, and we're going to go Launch Dota 2 Workshop. And that will go ahead and launch your Dota 2. Alright, so once you're inside of Dota 2, your next step is going to be to simply go to the store area. You're going to go to the Workshop tab, and you're going to go ahead and hit Publish New Submission. Okay, so go ahead and do that. Click on Wearable Item, and you're just going to click this little button right here on the right that says Upload to Dota 2. And once you hit that button, you're going to go ahead and notice that all of your information has been filled in, and you're ready to go ahead and hit Import. So now you're just going to go ahead and hit Import. It's going to go through this this little importing successful error dialog, and we're going to go ahead and hit OK. And voila, there's your item in game. Okay, so in here, what you can actually do is, you can kind of see how she deals with the bone structures. You can go ahead and have her actually do different poses, and you can do different animations, and just kind of see exactly how everything is working. So here's her flailing around, and we can do Medusa dying. And we can just kind of get an idea of exactly how good our work has turned out. Okay, and as you can see, those normal maps are really working for us. Everything's kind of coming in really nice. It's looking pretty good. So that's basically it. And then the last thing that I always like to do is actually preview what it would look like in game. So you just click this button. It's going to go okay, give you start a local server. You're going to hit OK, and it'll take you to the all pick screen. In here, you're just going to want to select Medusa. I always use the typing, it's just a lot faster. And go ahead and hit pick. You'll notice that the item in here is not the item that you created. That's okay. When you go into the game, it will be. So just go ahead and hit play. And there you are. And now you can see your object being utilized in game and tested as such. So that's pretty much it, and there's really not much else to know. We're going to go ahead and just use this little button right here to get our previews, so we can actually get in there nice and tight and really see exactly how everything turned out. Alright, so that's basically it, and I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. And as you can see, it's really not a big deal. It's a great process, and once you get it down, you can really make assets quickly and easily, and yeah, so it's pretty awesome, and these tools are just great, and I hope you guys appreciate them as much as I do. Alright, so have a lot of luck, and make some cool items. Alright, so that's it. Ta-ta for now.